All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depending on when and where you're watching this Facebook Live, this is the voice and face of Dr. Tolu Olabinto. I'm the CEO and co founder of Living Spring Family Medical Center here in the awesome city of Mansfield, Texas, where we believe in helping our patients live long and well because we believe the quality of life is just as important as the quantity of life. I am super excited today to be having another live, and our topic today is Doc, I hear there's science in silence and that it can help my brain. Is that so? And of course, we'll be having a talk with a neuroscientist and a neurologist, the one and only Dr. Niyi Borire. Doc, thank you so much for coming. I am honored to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm also honored to be here, and thanks for all the wonderful things you do.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. For those of you who are watching live, hashtag live. For those of you who watch a replay, hashtag replay. And that leads me to my first question, Doc. Do you mind introducing yourself? Who are you and what do you do?
Well, thanks again for having me on your platform. I am a clinical neurologist. What that means is that I look after people who have disorders of the brain, of the spinal cord, or nerves. I'm also a neuroscience researcher, so pretty much undergoing mostly clinical research into disorders of the brain and particularly the brain disorders of the brain, and I do some teaching both at the undergrad level and the postgrad level, and apart from that, I'm also involved in leadership development with a focus on the neuroscience of leadership, which we call NeuroLeadership.
Hmm.
And that has led me to explore a few other options. But most importantly, my passion is to take neuroscience from the clinic and the laboratory to the workplace, to contemporary life, and to help people be the best version of themselves.
I love what you do. And my curiosity is this though: why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do?
Yeah, why
Well,
you
that's
do
a
a lot though. You do a
yeah.
lot. So like why the science of the brain? And maybe we can talk about that briefly. And then how did you segue into doing the business piece where you actually help people on your platform
Mm,
empower them through mind science?
yeah. Well, I've always been fascinated by the brain. And I think the first time I saw a brain in real life was my second year of medical school, and I was fortunate enough to, deal with real cadavers. And I think in anatomy class, I was the chief dissector of a group,
Wow.
and I was just fascinated about neuroanatomy. I had a distinction in neuroanatomy in the university, so that just led me to this endless pursuit of understanding how the brain works. The brain is the most complex organ, made up of over 100 billion neurons, with each of them having more than 10,000 connections, resulting in over 12 trillion, synapses, ongoing, firing, ongoing continuously from birth till death. It's such an amazing and complex organ that we just cannot talk about enough. And that just led me to this pursuit of understanding how the brain works and how I can apply that to how I can improve patients' lives. And so, yeah, once I became a neurologist, and for me, neurology is not just a profession. For me, it's a calling. I'm so glad that being paid to do what I love. I
Hmm.
love to deal with disorders of the brain to help people. Unfortunately, most of my patients cannot be cured. Most of our patients with dementia, Parkinson's disease, motor neuron disease do not have cures. But just being able to engage and help patients walk through these difficult situations, giving them a diagnosis when it's possible, and helping them have a decent quality of life, for a lot of people is empowering. And for me, that's really fulfilling. That if I can't cure you, maybe I can help you understand your disease, adjust to life, living with the disease, and in fact, that's beating the disease, living with the disease, and being, fulfilling your purpose. Despite that, is still, a great thing for me, and that gives me joy and fulfillment. And of course, pivoting that into where we're right now. A few years ago, I just decided to feel strongly that we can apply our understanding of how the brain works to everyday life. if we can explain it and break it down for everyone. And I think that's what has led me to this journey in the last 2 to 3 years of bringing neuroscience into leadership and performance. How can I improve my performance as an individual? How can I be a better person as an individual? How can I operate in a way that will be, that will be more productive than what I'm doing right now if I understand how my brain works. So that way I can then develop a personal protocol that will help me bring out the best in myself. How can I develop new habits that would be useful for me? And how can I reverse negative habits? All right. By understanding neuroscience and neurobiology, you can then develop a customized, adaptable, and flexible program for yourself that will make you operate at optimal level. So that's why I am here.
Wow, wow. And it's so obvious you're passionate about, things, all things brain. I mean, the way you
Yeah,
talk about it, it's like a love relationship. What you do, this is powerful. And just for our viewers who are watching live and in replay, or replay, I wanted to emphasize our guests' background, because a lot of times my guests, when they come in, you are no exception, they downplay who they are and what they do. So I'm just going to take a few minutes just to highlight. He's an Dr. Niyi Borire is an award-winning neurologist. He's a neuroscience researcher, and he's a neuroleadership expert and executive coach. And he has a mandate. I love your mandate to empower leaders to create personal, professional, or organizational change. He also has certifications in neuroscience for business from MIT, Boston, USA, as well as in Neuroscience of Leadership from EnHansen Performance in Australia. He's also a John Maxwell team certified trainer and facilitator. And I'm saying that because I want to emphasize how involved you are in what you do and your life passion, okay? And the training it took you to also get to this point. He's also the director of Legacy Consults, a leadership development platform that equips leaders to improve their performance and inspire their teams to increase the productivity and profit of their organizations using evidence-based and bespoke neuroscience solutions. There was something that you said I wanted to also highlight, is that you actually help people who are on the other side of something neurological that's kind of permanent. You help them live better quality of lives in spite of their diagnosis, and that's key. What we can change, we change. What we can't, we can't. But we work with what we have to improve our quality of life. Lastly, he's also the founder and host of Brain, Mind, and Change, an online series which combines his scientific background and leadership calling to teach people how to achieve mastery of their brain, rewire their mind, and change their world. You change someone's mind, you change their outcomes and who they are. So, sorry.
absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, I want us to niche down on what we're talking about today. And we're talking about the science of silence. What led you down that path? Is there any story, anything that led to that particular niche?
Well, it was just a personal exploration for myself. I just felt there was just so much that I was doing, and it was my quest for finding inner peace, because I know I can't control a lot of the stuff that happens around me. I just became very busy. I have, two or three. I've got a medical practice in three locations now in Sydney. I lecture in the university. I work in a teaching hospital. I pastor a church. I'm involved in the defense force, and I still have to father two boys and be a husband to an amazing woman. So that takes a lot. All right, and of course, I've got family. I've got a mom. I've got siblings. I've got so much going on. And I think it got to a point where I was just crowded, and I just was not in a place of. I didn't just have inner peace. I was too busy for me to really enjoy life.
Mm.
I was focusing more on the doing than the being, and that led me to understanding and pursuing silence. I read a book about the golden power of silence, which was not a core neuroscience book. It was just a whole book on the philosophy of silence. And I was like, wow, let me go research the neuroscience of silence and find out exactly the benefits of practicing silence. And I was really amazed about what I found. And by applying that to my life, I realized that, oh gosh, I was missing a lot, and that a lot of things I can't control, but I can control what happens on the inside of me. It is true. I don't. There's no mute button for the mind. You can mute your mind, but you can certainly dial down the noise and be more productive.
All right, so let's get right to it. You talk about, like, your own personal journey, that this was something that you needed, and I love
Mhm.
that you used something that affected your own pain points to empower others. So let's talk some of the benefits of practicing silence, maybe four or five, depending on.
All right. I think we need to, before we talk about silence, we need to define noise. All right. Now, because silence is not the absence of sound, silence is the absence of noise. All right. So silence is not the absence of sound. And so when you're practicing silence, or we're talking about silence, we're not saying that you become completely mute, or you go into one anechoic chamber where you're not exposed to any kind of sound. That's not possible. All right. In fact, our bodies are so noisy, and the most quiet place on earth is an anechoic chamber that was built by Microsoft. All right. And no one has been able to stay in that chamber for more than 45 minutes to an hour, because when you go into that chamber, it's so quiet that you can hear your blood flow through your veins. You can hear your your heartbeat so loud. All right, every movement of your muscles, your ligaments, it's so annoying and disconcerting that you go crazy.
Oh my
You
God.
become completely disorientated. So we need a little bit of sound in our environment. We need ambient noise, a little bit of sound. But what we do not want is to be overwhelmed with noise. So noise can be external, auditory noise, and we live in a very noisy world right now. Noise can be external, noise can be informational. All right. A research in 2011 shows that the amount of informational noise we're exposed to is the equivalent of 174 newspapers per day, meaning that the amount of information you're exposed to, right, every day of your life is equivalent to the data written in 174 newspapers per day. You're not going to be able to read 174. In fact, you will probably struggle to read 10 newspapers in a day. Now imagine how much information we're getting from our group emails, from our Facebook messages, Instagram notifications, from all the live shows, WhatsApp. We're exposed. There's an information overload. And unfortunately, information consumes attention, pristine attention, which is important for our everyday life. And to top it up, we now have the inner noise, which is even worse. All right. And that's what's driving a lot of anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues that's going on right now in the world. And our inner voice is really high volume and of high frequency. You know, with auditory speech, you probably can only process 400 to 500 words per minute. I talk fast. If you listen to me, you probably will struggle to understand my words if I'm going faster than 400 words per minute.
Mm.
But your own inner voice, you can speak to your voice at a frequency of about 4,000 words per minute. And you can even do that with a lot of drama, with a lot of pictures, because with your imaginations are visual thoughts. You can actually create a lot of stuff in your mind. You speak to yourself with so much power and force. So noise, just to summarize, can be external, which is auditory or informational, or it can be internal, which is the constant perseverative thought, the ruminative thought, the self-talk that happens on the inside of us, which can be overwhelming for us. Okay. Now, silence in itself is the absence of noise. How can we get ourselves away from noise? Because we know that noise is detrimental to health. Noise is detrimental to our cardiovascular health. We've seen that studies have shown that in Europe, that as our ambient noise has increased in the developed world, so as the prevalence and incidence of cardiovascular health disorders, sleep disorders, dementia. So there are a lot of health hazards to noise. We know that. All right. In fact, there was a particular study that was a landmark study that was done in the United States, where they found that kids that were living in New York, that were studying in a particular school in New York that was close to the train station, the subway, they did poorly. And they did poorly because these kids, every time the train passes by, they get distracted, they can't focus, and over a period of time they realize that these kids had poor socioeconomic outcomes, all right from school. So we know that noise exposure, all right, is detrimental to health and to our overall well-being. So if noise is detrimental, silence, which is the absence or the reduction of noise, will be beneficial to our well-being. All right. And so, but being intentional about practicing silence, I think, is the key thing, because the world is naturally noisy and your mind will go crazy at times. So you have to be intentional about finding ways to dampen the noise. So if it's external noise like the auditory noise, having times where you can go into a quiet place, cool, quiet place where you can just relax and you're not exposed to too much noise, not too much going on, will be very essential. And that may mean, excusing yourself or putting away informational noise, switching off your phone, switching off notifications. How many times have you tried to just meditate and reflect on your day, and then the Instagram notification comes on, which then grabs your attention and, unfortunately takes away that little space? How many times have you been to your child's school play, watching your child maybe perform a dance, and then suddenly, and the inner noise comes, a thought drops in your mind about an argument you had with a coworker, and you miss that moment, you miss that smile of your daughter on the stage playing. You miss that moment. And like someone said, life is defined by people, places, and moments. A lot of us miss those powerful moments in our lives because we get encumbered. We're there physically, but we're not there mentally because we're so distractible. Remember, distractions are attractions that are vying for your attention. Every distraction is attractive and it's looking for your attention, and your most prized possession is your attention. Silence helps you get control of your attention and your focus. You'll be able to plan your day, you'll be able to put your energies into those things that really matter, and you'll be able to prioritize and live as healthy as possible. All right. Silence also helps you to, reduce the risk of some of these other health disorders I've talked about: poor sleep, poor memory, poor recall, and even just your general overall performance, your cognitive performance. So even if you're not demented, even if noise cannot make you demented, noise can make your cognitive performance reduced, because in order for you to operate cognitively at the appropriate level, you need to be able to divert your attentional resources to those cognitive tasks. If there's a lot of inner noise, how many times have you been able to have you been productive when your mind is just rambling on and on and on? Has it happened to you before where you're really distracted and you're trying to write a paper and you spend 5 hours writing one chapter? All right. And that's just because your mind is clouded. All right. So finding ways to reduce external noise and informational noise is the first thing. And then the other thing would now be going into some more um, intentional strategies of dealing with internal noise. All right. And promoting internal silence. I'm not sure whether I've answered your question, but I've just
Man,
been.
you more than answered the question, sir. You more than answered the question. A lot of things, a lot of gems that you dropped here. We live in an age of TMI, too much information, the importance of silence, what silence is, how and why it's important to our health, not just our emotional health, but our physical health, to practice silence. So I have someone who's watching is like, well, that's all fine and dandy, but I don't know how practical that is in this social media world. I mean, we are on social media. So, my first question is, well, how do you balance that in the busy world? Like, how there's so much to do. What would you say to that person who's looking at you like, Doc? I mean, this is all nice, and I'm happy for you that in the midst of your busy schedule, you can practice silence. But how realistic is that? Help me, I'm too busy.
Well, you have to just make a choice about what you want and the kind of life you want to live. All right. So if you're, what I tell patients, for example, is, oh, doc, I can do this, I can do this, I can work, I can do that. I'm like, well, if you become unwell right now, you will have enough time.
Hmm.
The reason why you think you're busy is because you're well. If you had a stroke, I've got tons of patients, this year alone, thousands of patients in our hospital who've had strokes. They don't complain when they come in that they want to go out, they want to do this. All right. So you've got to look at it from that angle. All right. How do you want to live your life, and how, you know, well do you want to live? Pretty much. That should then be the top priority. So what I would say is that if you know that exposure to too much noise is detrimental to health, you have to find ways to decompress. You have to find ways to do so. And it's true that we cannot, like, listen, I'm in Boston right now. I've been to 5 or 6 different cities in the last 2 weeks, and I've just stepped out of a conference. I've just been from to a convention center this morning at 7:30, rushed down to the hotel room right now for this webinar, and I'm going back for another lecture. All right. And by this afternoon, I'm going to Harvard University. I'm going to MIT this afternoon, and I'll end up to watch the playoff game of the Boston Celtics at 7:30 p.m. to like 10 p.m. All right. So today is a crazy day for me. All right. But Despite that, I need to still have moments. This morning, I still had a moment. All right, of course, it wasn't my time of devotion and all that, but I had a moment where I was just, just muting my mind and just silent and just calm. All right. So every day, what I tell people is find a place, a quiet place where you can have a bit of stillness, preferably in the early hours of the day before your day becomes so, crowded and all that. Find a place, a clean, tidy place where there's not a lot of exposure, all right, to distractions, where you can just relax and calm down and allow your stress hormones to be balanced, allow your neurochemicals, the neurochemicals in your brain, to just, be calm. Yeah, that's very essential. All right. So practicing silence in our external world, as busy as we are, is still possible. It could be your brain breaks, taking regular brain breaks, okay, at work, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of just calmness and sitting down, just relaxing, where you're not, you know, your downtime must not always be active. Your downtime must not always be talking, being on Facebook, being on Instagram. You can find time to do that. Apart from that, you should also find time to be off social media. You can't be on social media all of the time. Find time to be off it. Be careful about notifications, particularly when you want to do things that require a lot of cognitive effort. All right. So I'm not saying don't be on social media. I'm on social media. We're doing this on social media. But what I'm saying is that you can't be there all of the time, applying yourself all of the time. You're going to run into trouble. So that's what I would say. So to dial down the noise, this is what I would often recommend. Okay. I have like 5 Ds. Number one, decide to change. So it starts with a decision. Yes, I want to practice, silence. So number one, decide to change. Number two, disconnect from overload. Have what we call a digital Sabbath. Disconnect. So decide. Number two, disconnect. Disconnect from overload. From time to time, have a digital Sabbath. Have a day where you say, hey, I'm just going to, be away from my emails, no this, no that. I'm just going to chill. Life will still continue. The world will not end if you don't. It's not just social media, it's the news. Why must you have breaking news CNN on your phone or Fox News? What do you need that for? It's all going to be bad news anyway. You can catch up on the news later. Why do you have to hear about celebrity gossip first thing in the morning? How useful is that for you? All right. Learn to disconnect from overload. Number three, declutter your world. Your physical world, declutter your world. All right. Why must your room be crowded? How many bags do you really need to function? All right, in your, in your walking wardrobe, like, declutter. There's some things you really do not need now. You don't need declutter physical. You don't know how impactful having a clean table, a clean office table is to the brain, or a clean table is to the brain, or a clean bedroom is to the brain. It's so powerful. Declutter your world physically and mentally. All right. Delegate when necessary. Okay. You can't be everywhere and you can do everything. Okay. So decide, disconnect, declutter, delegate when necessary. Okay. Let other people do it. Let other people, help you. Get help when required. And lastly, develop habits of silence. And that comes from deliberate practice and accountability. you know practice silence every day. All right. So even if it's 10, 15 minutes of just sitting down, lying down calmly, you can do that in the mornings, in the evenings, or in the afternoons. Have times where you're just silent. All right. And sometimes, at the beginning your mind will race and it will be a time for you to daydream and all that, but just always anchor yourself back, and I just want to be calm. When we have this inner noise is about you talking to yourself about yourself. All right. And sometimes that can be detrimental. All right. The loudest noise is when you talk to yourself about yourself, and then you now expand that to what other people are saying about you, assigning meaning to comments, looks, and all that. And you just build a complex web of nonsense that just pulls you down and all that. All right. And of course, that can then affect your energy and how you relate with other people. So learn to just listen, get out of the way at times. Maybe this is not for everyone, but sometimes you're the problem. Learn to get out of the way. The world does not revolve around you. Everything is not about you. All right. And sometimes we need to tell our minds that listen, everything is not about me. All right. And so, get your ego out of the way and don't always focus on yourself and focus on others and how you can be, blessing to others. So I'll stop there. Dial down the noise.
Wow. Wow. I took notes, a lot of reflections, decluttering, prioritizing this because we know the benefits. There are many. And you did say something that initially might be a challenge, but you still go at it. You practice it like a muscle. When it's used over and over again, you get better at it.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes get out of your own way. Uh, yeah, very, very powerful. Um, we're going to do this again, sir, maybe in a couple of months. So I'm putting you on the spot in public, so that way you can't say no. But this is very, very, very powerful. A lot of gems have been dropped. For those of you who are watching, please share this with people who you know that this would be very beneficial. It would help our outlook on life. It would help improve our quality of life and actually make life more meaningful for us.
Mhm.
Doc, I have people who are watching who are like, man, this guy is amazing. I'm not happy it's just a 30-minute interview. And they're like, how do I follow this guy? Like, where do I see you? How can I connect with you? How can we invite you to come speak on their platform? Because a lot of people need to hear this in this day and age. Doc, where can people find you?
Well, I'm everywhere. You find me on social media. Niyi Borire, Niyiborire. So that's my handle on all the, I'm on LinkedIn, Niyi Borire. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, it's on the screen right now. You can find me everywhere. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. All right. So I run some webinars from time to time, and this topic on silence, you would find I take a 2-hour webinar on my YouTube channel on the science of silence, and in the next few weeks, I'll be doing another webinar on the science of dreams and imagination. So that'll also be a very interesting topic, very interesting conversation. Yeah,
Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you
thanks
for
for having me.
committing to what you do, because it is a blessing. I know that I'm going to get a lot of feedback just on this conversation. I'm going to rewatch this myself so I can take better notes, because this was very, very powerful. I really appreciate you, Doc. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Okay.
All right, sir. And thank you all for watching. Please, as always say, caring is sharing. Please tag those who could use this info, or forward this video to them. And if you or anyone you know is looking for a thorough, a passionate, and a committed family physician who will help you live long and well, I am she. Thank you for joining. Please share. This was powerful. Yes, Dr. Mitra, I concur. This was something. Okay. Thank you all for watching and have a great day. Bye.